Hi, I'm Paul Jermain, and welcome to another session of Smart Boating. As you know, if you watched the show before, we cover a variety of topics, from hurricane protection to docking, and the general idea is to give you information that will help you make smarter decisions and have more fun on the water. But every now and then we take a little side trip, and that's the case today. We're at the New Hampshire Boat Museum in Wolfboro, New Hampshire at their annual auction, and joining us to help orient us to this special event is Martha Cummings, who's the executive director. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks so much for having me this morning.
Well, thanks for coming.
Or for being here.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I always enjoy coming to the event. It's a great event. Before we get into it, we're going to tape a lot of boats today.
Yep.
Can you share a little bit about your boating background and a little bit about the museum?
Sure. My boating background probably started when I was maybe 3.
Okay.
And it was in Vermont on Lake Seymour.
Lake Seymour. Okay.
We had 2 aluminum boats from the 60s with big Johnson motors on them.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a flat-bottomed, very heavy wooden rowboat that was dark hunter green.
Yes.
So that was really my introduction to boating.
Okay.
And those are my fond memories of being around boats.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
And how about the museum? The museum's been here for quite a long time, right?
It was established in 1992 and had a couple different homes.
Okay.
We are now at its 3rd home here in Wolfboro. It's in a historic Quonset hut that was part of the Allen Resort.
Oh, okay.
And we can talk a little bit more about that building in a minute, but yeah, so that's how we landed here. We've got a storage barn and workshop where we do boat restoration,
Okay.
and we have all kinds of different programs and events, about 30.
About
of them.
30. And is there a general mission to the institution?
The mission of the museum is to educate and share the history of boating in the Lakes region, and really to spread that cultural history, highlighting boating in particular.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of interesting boats here today, and I'm going to actually step off camera and do a lot of taping. Then I'm going to team up with one of your museum experts.
That would be great.
To do a description. So
Absolutely.
I think I'll get started.
Okay.
All right.
Great. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Well, Hunt, here's an interesting boat at the auction today. It's a 1970 22-foot Lymans Sleeper. Great boat. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, the 1970s were toward the end of the wooden boat era. This boat, the Sleeper, has 2 bunks under the deck with a possibility of a small head.
Okay. All right. So what I like about these boats is they're very roomy, and they're somewhat practical and easy to maintain because they got the painted hull as opposed to a bright hull, right?
Right, and of course one of the big advantages of lapstrake is that it's very sea kindly. The round chine allows it to handle the Great Lakes, and offshore, quite a distance out. They're wonderful rough water boats.
Yeah, because they were they've started in Cleveland, but they moved down to Sandusky, Ohio, so they're always using Lake Erie, right?
Exactly.
So they get some serious water down there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a pretty boat. And here's the interior. Just really, again, what I like about it is it's very open, very easy to live with. Here's the helm. Instruments, well fitted with instruments.
And as you can see, Paul, the instrument panel has been updated with rocker switches and probably new gauges, so that makes it a lot more of a practical user boat.
Yes, that's a good point. We have the engine box in the middle, and I think this one was a 318, if I remember correctly.
Right, this is a 318 Chrysler block.
And here we see that round bilge that the Lymans were famous for, right?
Right.
A very soft riding boat. Interesting name. Well, here's another one at the auction here today. It's a 1967 19-foot Pinion Imperial. 67 was about the transition period, as a lot of boat builders, including Pinion, transitioned from wood to a fiberglass, right?
Exactly, and this is one of their very first fiberglass models. And of course, note that it's molded in a lapstrake design. So they're bringing some of the nostalgia, if you will, from the earlier era into a fiberglass boat. Right. Rides very well, totally waterproof, nice utility boat.
And you couldn't, and really I like the way they kept the lines, because from 10 feet, 20 feet away, you couldn't tell that this wasn't a classic wood boat, right?
That's right.
They captured it really well. And these guys, just like Lyman, been around a long time. They started in 1921. building boats, and they were very famous for the Pinion camper. You know, that small boat that two people can lift and put on the
Sure,
put on the roof of the car,
the
right?
car topper, and they had many other boats like that that were light and fast.
And here's the interior. We got the what do they call those, back-to-back seats? Those were very popular in that time period.
Yeah,
weren't they?
they're very popular, and you can see most of that instrumentation looks original. You
Yes.
even see the gauge unit look like it came right out of the factory.
So that would add value to the boat, right?
Sure it does.
Yeah.
As long as those gauges are working and they're original, that's a real plus.
Yes, yes, yes. Again, this seems like a very functional layout, very easy to work with. Now here's the stern drive, very popular. A little bit more of a V to this hull than some of the other boats I think we're going to be looking at today.
Right. As they added V's to the hull, they became better riding boats.
All right. Here's the next boat. It's a Century Coronado, 1958, with an unusual engine. This was a pretty boat. This was basically top of the line for Century during that time period, right?
Right. This was the biggie, and they called this the Cadillac of the waterways.
Oh, okay.
The motor in this thing, a 354 Hemi, actually
Yes.
was only the second biggest motor they had in this thing.
Oh, really?
But with this Hemi, it would do over 50 miles an hour.
Right. That's what, and of course during that time period, right about then, they nicknamed themselves or came up with the slogan "thoroughbred of boats," right? Because of the speed of all their boats.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. The Centuries were always a little bit faster than ChrisCraft.
Yes. So as a result of two things, basically, right? A bigger engine, oftentimes, and sometimes the construction resulted in a slightly lighter boat, right?
Right. The construction was single bottom, single hull, single plank
Single
bottoms
plank, yep.
versus double plank for ChrisCraft.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they always had a slightly bigger engine on a comparable model than ChrisCraft did,
Right.
intentionally.
Right, and very luxurious, right? So we're looking inside here. See the full instrument panel up there, the car-like steering wheel.
Right.
A lot of chrome, just really a pretty presentation.
Yeah, just a beautiful boat and very, very comfortable.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, because it was so heavy. You
Oh,
could
okay.
go through anything.
All right. Yeah, this is and this boat's in beautiful shape too.
Yeah, the
So
varnish is great.
they've done a restoration to it.
Yep.
Here's the transom, and you can see the Century and that V. That's really an aero inlet, right? So it has form and function, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, here's another interesting one. It's a 1968 Kraft Mustang, and you know, again, similar to some of the other companies we've been talking about. These guys have been around a long time. The company was established in 1925, and they really focused on ski boats, didn't they?
You're exactly right. They started off with just plywood hulled ski boats, but they always were basically flat bottom, slight V in the bow, which made for good speed, good acceleration, and lightweight. This happens to be one of the earlier fiberglass boats.
Okay.
It's a small 16-footer, but it was a great ski boat.
It's interesting. You kind of can tell the year about the shape of the windshield. They were getting into understanding how to curve plexiglass and that sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, the older boats, of course, just had flat glass. Now we're seeing a lot of curves.
And the hull is pretty straightforward here. We got a strake down the bottom there, but you don't have a lot of other chines or streaks or that sort of thing, do you?
Yeah, very, very simple hull.
And here's the this boat is designed for skiing. You don't normally put a ski pylon in the middle of a boat unless you intend to do some skiing.
Exactly.
Right?
Ski pylon and the observer seat facing the rear, which
Yeah.
is exactly what you need. And of course, a huge motor box to cover that great big V8 motor.
Yeah. This one was running, I think, a Ford 351.
351. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just huge for a boat that size. Now, of course, a ski boat, it's geared way down and the propeller has a low pitch.
Yeah, so we can see the prop down the bottom here. Very flat hull, bottom of the hull. And this boat had been recently restored, so it really came out nice, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a beauty. Well, here's another, again, exceptional boat. This is a 1940 16-foot Lymans with a Phantom engine. Just a recently restored, beautiful restoration. Again, going with the marine grade fir plywood for the construction, right?
Yep. And, well, this was just pre-war.
Oh, right.
So this could have been either way. This
That's
might have
right,
been
sure.
solid planking.
Yes,
But
yes.
notice the shear line on that boat. It's
Yes.
absolutely perfect.
Yes, it is.
And these older Lymans were not really planing boats. They were displacement hulls. You can
Oh, they
almost
were.
tell by the deep the deep entry of the bow.
Yes.
For cutting through.
It's almost like
waves
a
and-
plumb bow.
Yeah,
Plumb bow there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course the late 30s, early 40s flat windshield. Very nicely done.
Yeah. So again, as you say, pre-war, likely solid planks as opposed to the marine grade plywood. And then the top sides would be all mahogany, right? All this.
Yep, all
The
mahogany.
deck and the windshield.
And that beautiful Ivolite searchlight, which
Yeah.
is one of the prize accessories of all boaters.
That's a rare bird. Here's our interior shot. Pretty simple layout. We got a steering wheel. This lever in the middle, right off the center, is the throttle, if I remember
Yes,
correctly,
you're
right? Yep.
Yep. It looks like original gauges. They look like they're in good shape. I'm sure they work.
Yes. And that, again, adds value to the boat, right?
Does add value. Mm-hmm. And notice on this model, there's no covering boards.
Yes.
You're just seeing the ribs and the planking.
Okay. And of course, these were famous for coming out of Sandusky, Ohio, and that's what gave them their orientation to being good rough water boats.
Right.
Because they were around rough water a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, here's what I think is a very interesting boat. It's a 1948 18-foot Ventor. This company, again, old company, 1902 it was started in Ventura, New Jersey, and it moved to Atlantic City afterwards. But these guys made some pretty fast boats, right?
Well, Ventnor was always into high speed and performance.
Mm-hmm.
They were early designers of step hydroplanes.
Oh, they were.
Until in the 30s, one of the Ventnor boys invented the three-point hydroplane,
Okay,
which
yes.
became the dominant racing vehicle all the way up till today. The three-point hydro is used exclusively today in hydroplane racing. This is one of the rare utility boats that the company made that wasn't necessarily speed-oriented. It was more along the lines of Centuries or ChrisCraft.
Okay, yeah, I think this one was sporting a 150 horsepower engine, perhaps not as big as some of the other engines around that time. So
exactly.
good turner speed,
Yep.
but not leader of the group. Beautiful interior. I like the windshield. It's got kind of a frameless windshield to it.
Yeah.
And all that. The deck looks sharp. Again, a similar steering wheel instrumentation setup to a lot of the boats you see that.
Yeah, it is. That looks original also. Notice the interesting padded insides.
Yes.
That's a nice design feature.
Right. Yeah, got a nice cockpit there. I
Yep,
could see people
new
using that for-
vinyl on the flooring, nicely restored cushions.
And here, again, if we look at the shape, we got some air vents at the top of the transom, and then the shape it's relatively flat.
Right.
Yeah, not a deep V. All right, well, here's another Pinion. This is a 1956, 15-foot roughly, Pinion Sea Liner. The construction on this is very interesting, right?
Yes, this is interesting. Pinion typically had done canvas over stripped wood. This one is just strip built.
Just strip built, yeah.
But interestingly, they had a two-layer process. So they had a liner of strips with a plastic sheet over that,
Yes.
and then the final layers of wood. So it made a very, very tight, waterproof hull that was very light.
Very interesting, yeah. It's kind of a rare bird to see one in this condition being that old, right?
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
Yeah, it's pretty, and again, it's got a big windshield. I kind of like the layout that I'm seeing right now. It's just an easy boat to live with from what I
Very
can see.
easy boat to live with. You could probably water ski with that. You could fish off of it. Keeps you out of the rain.
Yeah. Here's the interior shot. Plenty of seating. The steering wheel instrumentation set up there. I'll walk through here. That's nice to be able to easily access the back of the boat.
Right, just simple instrumentation. Probably a tack and a speedometer,
Yes.
and that's really all you need.
That was it back in those days, wasn't it?
The motor is a 30-horse Johnson, which wasn't put on the boat, but you can
Right.
see it back in there, and
We'll
that was
see
a
it in here.
wonderful power head for that boat.
Yeah, there it is there. It needs a little bit of work, but it's nice to couple those two original pieces together, right?
Exactly.
The boat and the engine.
Same year.
Yeah. Well, there were a few Lymans here today at the show, and this is a 1954 15-footer. So 1954 would have been our post-war.
Just post-war.
Right.
And,
So this probably would have had the marine plywood.
Exactly. It would have had marine plywood hulls, which you can't tell. You can't tell if they're
No,
plywood
you certainly can't.
or all mahogany. It's just
Right.
beautifully put together. This 15-foot model was one of thousands built. This was an extremely popular design.
Oh, it was.
For Lymans. This one happens to have center steering with a windshield.
Yes.
The windshield was an option in those days. Most of them were built with just the center steering and no windshield. So this is a little bit more unusual.
Right. I know what you mean. Yep. And that's, again, a pretty seaworthy design for its shape, right?
It is. It's a small boat, so still you couldn't take it out on really big lakes.
No.
But it's, again, it rides softly. And,
Easy to trailer.
Very easy to trailer, yeah, for sure.
Okay, here's the interior that you were just talking about, where we have the windshield forward and the steering, the helm, if you will, midships.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is powered by a modern Mercury motor.
Yes.
Which makes it extremely practical. The motor's light, it's fast, it's low maintenance, so it's really a perfect motor for a user of this boat.
Someone that wants to use the boat, yeah, exactly. And so it's not either or. You could buy an old boat combination with an old motor, then have new power, use it, and then when you go to sell it, you can put the package back together.
Exactly, right? Sure.
Yep, day in and day out, this is a nice way to go with modern power. Now this is a great boat. It's a 1961 17-foot Old Town lapstrake. And this one actually brings back memories to me because my first boat was an Old Town lapstrake. And these guys are very famous for canoes, right?
Yeah. Here's a company that had been around since the 1800s, building canoes in the thousands that were shipped all over the world. They found that they wanted to get into the big boat business. And indeed they did, copying Lymans and other regional lapstrake boat builders. In my opinion, the quality was good, but the design was not quite as smooth or graceful as Lymans or some of the other lapstrake boats.
Right.
Still a well-built hull.
Yes. And they were, again, coming from a canoe perspective rather than a powerboat perspective originally. Right?
That's right.
Yep. Again, that's a nice riding boat. That shape would give you a nice ride.
Yeah.
Here's the interior again. This one has the helm forward, right behind the windshield, which makes perfect sense.
And the windshield, of course, will fold out so that you can get some breeze on those really hot days.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, the vented windows.
Right. You can see that there's a cuddy beneath the deck, probably for storage, or little kids can sleep up there.
Life preservers and different things you keep on the boat. Yeah.
And here's the 40-horse Johnson.
Yeah.
Wonderful motor. A little bit small for this boat, perhaps. But just a great combination.
The old Seahorse.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were interesting the way they had the logos there. You can see the Seahorse in the picture there. Here's a ChrisCraft. It's an old ChrisCraft, 1936. 16-foot ChrisCraft, 5'11". ChrisCraft, again, like a lot of these manufacturers, went back into the late 1800s, early 1900s. Been around a long time. What was special about this boat here we're looking at?
Well, one of the things about the 30s and early 40s boats was the windshield. The windshield, of course, is very distinctive of that era. And the stainless steel or chrome-plated cutwater, which is more of a design element than anything else, but it really adds a distinctive line to that boat.
It does jazz it up a little bit, doesn't it?
It does. This particular boat is beautifully restored, probably has a new bottom on it, and nicely varnished.
And this would have been the 30s. I guess they started with racing boats, and then I think they morphed into offering boats for the middle class. So this might have been possible for somebody to get that wasn't rich, I guess. Right,
of course. This is 1936, so during the end of the Depression, they probably didn't sell a lot of these, and it was pre-war, so this was still pretty limited in. It was
they hadn't broadened their focus yet.
Right. But it's just a marvelous 2 cockpits forward, engine aft configuration.
And a 60 horsepower engine on this.
Yeah, and it can plane and could probably do high 20s. It's wonderful.
Yeah, there's a picture of the engine in there. Now, ChrisCraft Marinized their engines, right?
Right. They would typically buy them from Gray Marine or other, block manufacturing companies, and they'd marinize it and put it in their boats.
It's a beautiful transmission. Again, a very flat bottom to this. It gives them plenty of speed, right?
Yep. Good acceleration, good speed.
You know, the next boat is made by what a lot of people think is an aircraft manufacturer, and they really were. Grumman was the top producer of carrier-based aircraft during the war.
Exactly. It's amazing. This company starts off as an aluminum bending and riveting company. Ends up getting into the airplane business, builds a bunch of fighter aircraft for aircraft carriers during World War II. Came out of the war and stayed in the aerospace business. In fact, they built the famous F-14 Tomcat that Tom Cruise brought to fame in Top Gun. They made a lot of canoes using the same technology.
Yeah, and this boat was kind of a limited production run. I understand that it's an aluminum boat with kind of a very interesting propulsion back there. And this was the captain's gig for the Mount Washington, if I remember.
Yeah, it's true. It's a very interesting history in this thing.
Yes.
So in the rear is a 44 cubic inch Fagul motor based on a Crosley block.
Right, and this is how you control it up at the helm. Kind of an interesting control box. I haven't seen one like that
No,
before.
either have I. So there's this typical gear shift and the,
very
and the
simple,
speed control.
right? You don't see a lot. You don't even see any instruments there.
Right.
But
Very simple.
Very simple. Very easy to maintain.
Yep.
And again, this engine that we're going to be seeing here in a second, that was a 44 cubic inch
Right.
Crosley engine.
Yeah.
Mounted vertically.
Mounted vertically, and it's connected to a Scott Atwater lower unit.
Yeah, we can see that
sticks
here.
out through the
you can
bottom.
see the propeller down at the base of the transom.
Yeah, very interesting configuration.
Yes. You don't see one like that every day.
No.
All right. Here's one, another ChrisCraft Cavalier, 1955. Just a beautiful boat, mahogany. What are some of the important points here?
Well, the important points of the Cavalier is that the Cavalier was a plywood boat.
It was. Okay.
I mean, you can't even tell in that particular version. It's beautiful.
You certainly can't. Right.
So they're plywood boats. They're built lightly and inexpensively. So they were going against correct crafts, let's say. Correct crafts that were at that time were also plywood, and they sold a lot. Now, they didn't last a long time because they were just plywood, and plywood would delaminate and rot.
Yes.
But very fast, and you could also often get those with the V8 motors, and they'd be great ski boats.
Wow, yeah. And again, this is something that somebody might be able to get into without having to be independently wealthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a pretty boat. Again, you get the curved windshield. I like you get the red interior, kind of sets off with the rest of the boat. Very simple instrumentation, a simple helm.
Yep, it's probably got a speedometer, it's probably got an ammeter and maybe something else.
Yeah, but water temperature or something.
Yeah, water temperature. But it's it's simple, it's gorgeous. And there's the engine.
Yeah. Very easy to access these engines, actually, because once you take the engine box off, you can get right to almost anything you want to get to.
That's right, yeah.
That's kind of nice.
Very easy for maintenance.
Yeah. And I like the contrast there. Again, we see a very flat bottom to the hull here.
Yeah.
And
makes it a fast boat, but a bit of a rough riding boat.
Yes. All right. Now this one is kind of a one-off, if you will. I don't see too many of this. Lakeside was a stepped racer, right? So that's probably one of the most unusual parts of this boat, right?
Yeah, well, it's one of the early stepped hydroplanes. And stepped hydroplanes were the first step beyond a pure runabout bottom that people wanting high speed would buy. And of course, the racers jumped on it. And this became the dominant shape of racing hulls until Ventnor invented the three-point hydro.
Okay.
And patented that design. But this one is, I think it's 15 feet long, and put in two people and with that racing motor on the back, I mean, you could probably run up into the mid-50s with this thing.
Yeah, and this was in 1929, so that was significant.
Very, very fast boat, and lots of fun.
Yeah. And this is regular plank construction here, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's relatively heavy for its length, but it's durable.
That's what I was thinking. It must make it sturdy at the same time.
Yep.
We've got the helm, again, midway back. I guess that's a good position to be if you're racing a boat.
You want to get your bow up. Notice the simple cable steering.
Yes.
That's all. No instruments. You don't need instruments when you're racing.
Right. If it's running, it's running. If it's not, it's not.
That's right. And just manual pull start.
Okay. And this was, I think, a 32 horsepower Johnson.
That's right. I think it's what they call a VR50. It's an opposed 4-cylinder motor. I mean, it's a real banger. But it was fast, and those things are still around, still working.
Yeah.
Notice the racing prop.
Yes. Here's another boat here at the show, a 64 ChrisCraft, a 17-footer with a 302 in it. This would have been one of the early glass boats.
Yeah, this is one of the early glass boats. This one is beautifully maintained, beautifully restored. It was a bit bigger than the Mustang, probably more than a foot wider in beam, higher freeboard. This was about 2,000 pounds.
Okay.
So it was a pretty decent, solid ski boat. Again, pretty much single function, but it was big enough to be a general use boat as well as just a plain ski boat.
Okay.
This is one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's a beauty. I get the impression looking at it, it's probably highly original. A lot of original finishes and hardware and that sort of thing.
Yes, I would think that's the case. Certainly that ski tow pylon in the middle is original.
Right.
And it looks like it's just been polished and taken care of nicely.
Yeah. There's an interesting hull shape here. Again, I've seen this before in the other ChrisCrafts, the way the chines work. Complete instrumentation on this one.
Yep, looks all original. Notice the steering wheel with the horn ram, just like on cars.
Right. Yep, and the big ski pylon. It's obviously not a fishing boat.
Right.
It's made for skiing.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's a beautiful the way it's laid out is just beautiful.
Yeah.
And of course, you see the big motor box in these ski boats. The box is the biggest thing in there, and with a 302, that's plenty of power.
Yes. Again, a relatively flat hull. Got a big swim platform on there in the back. Makes it easier for the skiers to get in and out of the boat.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Well, here's another interesting ChrisCraft. It's a 1939 18-foot utility. So would this be considered pre-war?
Yeah, this is probably one of the last boats ChrisCraft made before they began to get into government contracts, and the end of their pleasure boat business for a number of years. Yeah. And this is the classic design with that straight windshield that does fold down.
All right.
So that's a nice feature.
Yeah.
And it's got the cutwater in front.
It does.
And the same shallow V bow going into a relatively flat stern.
This would have been all mahogany plank.
All mahogany plank, right?
Yeah. The shape of the hull is a little different than some of the other ones that followed. It seems more, I don't know, angular, if you will.
This is straight. Some of the newer ones have a bit more of a tumble home transom effect.
Yes.
Which is a little more graceful. This is more utilitarian. After all, it's a utility. Here's the inside.
Yeah, here's the inside, yeah.
Again, it looks like original gauges, your little speed control right there on the steering wheel. All looks original. And note the covering boards.
Yes, along the sides.
So that's kind of an upgrade to the basic plain interior. Adds a lot of class, a lot of extra varnish. Just looks wonderful.
Yes, it does. It's very well finished. Yep, and very, very easy to get around in. So this is a stern shot. That's just an interesting name to go with an interesting boat. Just a beauty. Well, Martha, we've had a great show here today, and unfortunately it's time to wrap up. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we complete the show?
Well, thank you so much, Paul, for coming today. It was great to be able to share it with you and all of your viewers. This was a great fundraiser and gets us going on our capital campaign, which is ongoing right now. We've outgrown that Quonset hut that I mentioned, and we are looking to move to construct a new museum building and move actually to the bayside of Back Bay in Wolfboro.
Oh, exciting.
So if you'd like to find out how you can help, you can visit our website, www.nhbm.org, and find out more about our plans and our progress for our museum.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Smart Boating viewers, for watching. If you have comments or questions, visit our website, www.smartboatingus.com. Thank you.